What did you do as a teenager that you will never tell your parents? I legit used Photoshop to change my grades on a bad report card once. They never figured it out. I used Inspect Element to change my bank account information when my mother demanded to see how much money I had and what it bought recently. Somehow over the next month or two I managed to fudge the numbers enough that she never figured it out. I don't miss having my parents spying on my finances, but I also don't miss being so financially irresponsible as I was in my teens. I really didn't want to do PE one day, but I didn't have a good reason, so I knew my dad wouldn't write me a note. So what I did instead was get a plain piece of paper and asked him to sign it, because we're doing a thing in English where we try to guess the personality of a person from their signature, which he totally bought. I then went to the printer and typed out your standard sick note, stuck the signed plain paper into the printer so when the note printed my dad's signature would appear at the bottom. I will probably tell my dad this at some point because I'm actually kinda proud of myself for pulling it off. When I was 13, a friend of mine used to steal his mom's muscle relaxers and split them with me at school, and some of those days I would have my dad pick me up because I wasn't feeling too great. But I did indeed feel great. My mom let my friends all come over the night after graduation. Believe it or not, she got together with the other moms for us to have a little party, complete with a few malt beverages and beer. We gave my mom all our keys. We turned up the music. We got out a table. We proceeded to play D&D all night. My mom still thinks we got drunk. My parents were both out of town, but left the car with keys in kitchen anyway. I was 16, just learned how to drive, and this girl texted me to come pick her up and come back to my place. 10 minutes later I'm grabbing the keys and driving across town in a car that I shouldn't be in with no license. They are never gonna find that one out. Was trying to convince my dad to buy me a new computer for college. He doesn't exactly like the fact that I play video games due to the Asian/Middle Eastern mentality of study till you die, but had been doing it for so long he begrudgingly accepted it after realizing it wasn't just a phase. However, he made it clear that he would only buy a computer for the express purpose of helping me get a computer science degree. Shocker, right? Unfortunately, he wasn't tech savvy at all. So I searched online stores until I found a laptop that I wanted to replace my old shooty one with. It was an $800 Asus gaming laptop with middle of the road specs for the time. There was no way he would ever buy me a laptop that was built for the express purpose of gaming. So I used Inspect Element to replace all instances of the word gaming on the product page with the word studying, and made sure not to reload the page when showing it to him. It would change the words back into gaming. It worked, and within 1 week I got my new studying computer. My time to shine. My senior year of high school I snuck out of the house at like 2 AM to get some. My parents were a little psycho and put bells on the front and back doors. You know, in case of burglars. But they didn't put them on the laundry room door, which led to the garage. The garage had a side door in it that lead outside. So obviously that was my way out. The problem with that side door is that it's a bit hard to tell when it's locked, since you can always get out but not necessarily back in. So, me being stupid and horny, just assumed it was fine, and went along my merry way. Did the deed then, when I tried to get back and I found the door locked. Shit, I tried every other possible entrance, all locked. But I had my phone and an idea so crazy it just might work. I called my mom, and in my best helpless daughter voice cried, "Mommy, I woke up in the front yard and the door is locked. I'm so scared." She came right out and got me. I mumbled something about sleepwalking. Then she made me waffles, since I was so distressed. My mom still tells the story at family get-togethers. I now have a reputation as a crazy sleepwalker. TL. Doctor got laid, lied to my mom, then she made me waffles. That time I came home on the eve of my 17th birthday and you said I looked different, and I said it was because I'm older now. It was because my pupils were blown out and I was on acid. When I got my first cell phone in Nexus 5, my parents kinda went nuts with the whole plugged in and turned off in the living room at night thing. Knowing them, it was probably an anti-porn measure. Unfortunately, all them, my 3DS had, and a half decent internet bra. a friend from high school, and I snuck out with her boyfriend, who could drive. When I was 14, she was 15. He let her drive the car and she crashed it. It was his dad's car, his car apparently being in the shop. I didn't really get to hurt besides some bruises, but we had to walk 7 miles home at 3 AM. We got home right before anyone got up. When I was about 15, I took half an eighth of mushrooms and maybe 8 or more quercetin pills and went downstairs to watch a movie with my parents. My parents were always fighting back then. They really hated each other, and I hated them as well, but for some reason, that night was very pleasant. We were all laughing and joking, and having a genuinely good time. Meanwhile, the walls around them were breathing and the carpet was swirling beneath me. I was having trouble focusing on their faces, that would be the quercetin, but I wasn't in the least bit paranoid that they may know I was high. It was an extremely strange night. My dad and I are friends now, and we've talked about our drug use. When we were younger, he was getting high in his room, while I was getting high in mine, and angrily taking my weed when he caught me and smoking it himself. Apparently my mom was the one who was adamantly anti-drug. Dad just put on a show for her sake, but for some reason, I've never mentioned that night to him. Rushing out of church to be sick with food poisoning when I was 14. Lots of people consoling me and being driven home early. I was very hungover. I used to intern at a radio station. One day, I told my parents that I was going to go early to sit in on an editorial meeting. Instead, I took a bus an hour south to interview a felon about her experiences with solitary confinement and prison debt for a piece I was working on. They think this interview took place at the station. If they found out the truth now, they would probably get a heart attack. I put a rug under a pine tree in my grandparents' front yard and fricked the neighbor girl at least twice a week. Good times. Snuck out of the house with a friend while I was staying over with her to meet a group of boys. She hooked up with one of them in a truck, while the rest of us, me and the other 2 guys, hung around in the desert at night trying not to notice the truck rocking back and forth. I must have been 14 or so. Never did anything like that before or since. I went with her BC I was afraid she'd get in trouble with the boys by herself, so I wanted to watch over her. We got caught by her parents, who told me they were going to tell my parents. I prepared to be grounded for life. Then her dad changed his mind and told me I was a good kid and he would let this one go, but we had better not sneak out of his house again. Needless to say, he went through this a lot with his daughter. I never told my parents and never will, lol. And I'm 28 now. I'm not proud of this anymore, but after I realized that my parents had stashed all the liquor behind the washer and dryer, I totally started taking a few shots here and there. Once my friends found out I had access to my parents' redneck liquor cabinet, we overdid it one weekend at the beach, and I panicked because this time I knew my parents would notice. But I also had to pee, and there were no public restrooms at that beach. So I went behind a sand dune and peed in a fast food cup, then poured it back into my dad's mostly empty rum bottle. Drunken teenage logic decided that it had enough rum that day that I had just been borrowing it from good old dad. So I gave it back. He'll never know if my parents use the rum for anything, but what I can say for sure is that they attended a party every January and brought their own homemade brew which was part rum. #TLDR. I'm pretty sure I'll let my parents drink my pee. Going on dates with girls. Kissing girls. You know, the usual for a 16-year-old supposed Muslim girl. Yeah, would get myself killed if I told them